In studio with us now, Executive Vice President and General Manager Nick Caserio. Nick, how's it going?
Good to be doing a show this week.
Yep. Absolutely. We're still going. Congratulations on the playoff victory. We'll talk about the Chiefs in a moment, but your thoughts on what you saw the Texans against the Chargers, a complete effort, a 20-point win.
Yeah, played really well collectively as a team. All three phases had a say kind of in the victory there at different points. So, and that's what we talked about going into the game. All three phases, there's certain benchmarks we're going to have to hit. Some of the things that John and I talked about before the game, those came to fruition here a little bit, some of the emphasis points that we had during the week. So overall, it was a great team effort. A lot of players contributed. We needed everybody. Played good situationally, kind of when we needed to. Obviously, the turnovers in the end were a critical part of the game. And then we were able to get the ball in the end zone at different points. So overall, we did enough things to win, put ourselves in a good position. Now we know the opportunity this week against a really good football team.
Nick, what could have been a turnover didn't turn into a turnover, and it actually maybe turned into the play that maybe popped the top on everything, and that was CJ not catching a snap, dropping a snap, bad snap, whatever you want to call it, picking up and finding X. Did you kind of feel like at the time, you know what, maybe something kind of quirky, weird, but ended up being a big play could kind of get us going offensively?
Yeah, you never really know what play is going to kind of change the complexion of the game there a little bit. Even that start of that drive, we had the ball on the one. Yeah. We're actually able to get the ball off of the goal line there a little bit. You know, we were backed up. The first half really didn't have control of field position. It seems like we were always playing on a short field. And then we were able to get that conversion there. And even if the snap wasn't dropped, you look at the play and the concept, there was going to be some space probably for the in cut there. Now, the way the play materialized, I don't think anybody drew that up on a paper, but sometimes players just have to make plays. Seemingly, Hutch makes a play like that during the course of the year. Did against Green Bay, where he came up with a third down conversion. When he gets an opportunity, they're limited, but he maximizes those and capitalizes them. And CJ kind of kept his composure and was able to make a good play while on the move.
Well, he hit Schultz, and then he hit Nico on the 37-yarder. That set up the touchdown throw, which was no easy throw on 3rd and long. But what about Nico and CJ finding that chemistry? They have it, but it really came in handy in that game.
Yeah, I mean, those are two really good football players. So anytime those two players are involved offensively, good things are probably going to happen. So, the concept on the play was pretty good. CJ made a really good throw, made a quick decision. Nico was able to win off the line of scrimmage there right from the snap. So it's all about timing and execution. If you wait a little bit longer or if he gets knocked off the route, maybe that play doesn't work out the way that it did. But those are two players that have made plays going back to the first week of the regular season. In the Indy game, we saw multiple examples where he basically threw a jump ball up there in double coverage and then the third down throw to finish the game. So Nico's been a big part of the offense really over the past couple seasons. So he made a lot of plays that helped us win.
How satisfying was it for you, Nick, to see a drive after McConkey takes one to the house? You're like, all right, it's 23-12. It's still, or 25-12. It's still within range for them. And you get the ball, I don't know, there's 10 minutes left or so, and just run, and get a couple fourth downs, and obviously the second one turns into a touchdown. How satisfying was it for the run game to kind of click like that at that point?
Yeah, and really it's each set of plays. So I gave it the big play on 3rd and 30 or whatever it was, but then we got the 2-point. We blocked the extra point, so we got our 2 points, and then got the ball back. And to be able to take 6-7 minutes off the clock, that's huge. Anytime you can kind of close out the game or finish the game in a drive like that, credit to the offensive line, credit to the backs. Joe had a number of good runs there in different situations. So, but in the end, it comes down to execution, and we were able to execute. And we had a hat on a hat, and we accounted for the defenders. There's a few times they had an extra defender there, brought some edge pressures. They were obviously trying to create a negative play, but then we were able to pop it through there. Even the one where Joe kind of got called out of bounds, but was in bounds. Yep. I mean, that was a chunk run. And then to close it out with the goal line run that he was able to squirt through, ended up being a big play. So anytime you can do that, it's a good win for the offense.
Well, both teams, because with the Texans, running game starts off a little slow, but you're staying with it, and it pays off at the end. With the Chargers, they had some runs early, but then you really shut that down.
Yeah, if you look at the games over the weekend, and we talked about this going in the end, the run game is going to factor in some capacity, both sides of the ball, the ability to execute it offensively and then the ability to stop it defensively on the other side of the ball. So to your point, Mark, early in the game, they were able to knock out a few runs there. We kind of shored some things up there defensively with the front. And they ended up running for 50, 60 yards, whatever it was. And then we were able to run for however many yards. We ran over 100, whatever it was. Joe went over 100. DP got in there, had a couple good runs, and then CJ made some plays with his legs. So, but you look around the league, the teams that ran the ball effectively in the end ended up on the positive side of the scoreboard.
One thing I think is fascinating, Nick, is everybody talks about, well, you go into halftime and you make all these adjustments. You make the adjustments at halftime. And it's like, you can't do that in the NFL. But really what you just talked about is they were hitting some runs. And their runs that, as D'Amico has told me, that against this defense, we talked about this, some of the gap-style runs can be, and not this defense is kryptonite, but it can be tough to stop because of the way the defense is set up. But it feels like adjustments and reminders have to be on the sideline. Hey, they just ran this. We got to adjust. We got to make sure that we're doing this, doing that. How important was that at that point to make changes against a run like that?
It's critically important. You really, after a few series, you kind of have a feel for what's going on in the game. What has hurt us? What has done well? What are some adjustments or tweaks that we can actually make? And that's where, when you come off the field, whether on offense or defense, you sit with your position coach and you go through, you look at the tablets, you look at some things, you have some discussions, and then figure out, all right, what can we do to improve this or clean it up or make it a little bit better? So you don't wait till halftime.
Right.
Halftime is more of a kind of a recap. All right, what happened? Where are we? All right, let's get ready for the first possession offensively and defensively. But during the course of the game, you kind of have a sense of what's happening, and you got to get it fixed. If you wait too long, then it's too late.
Yep.
What about CJ's runs? You mentioned that, Nick, and it's a weapon. You got to be careful. Don't want to risk too much, but it's so effective.
You have to pick your spots, and I think we're seeing that more with quarterbacks really throughout the league. So go through the weekend here. Jaden makes plays with his legs. Lamar, everybody knows what Lamar can do with his legs, but Josh, a run game is a big component. I would say Bo Nix even had his opportunities. Yep. Patrick, we talked about it on this show, even before we played him week 15 or 16. We'll talk about it here again. But the ability to kind of make a play with your legs can potentially extend a drive. And in our case, CJ, that long run he had there in their halftime, was able to get it in plus territory. Then we're able to have a couple of completions, able to kick the field goal. Then we go up 10-6, and then we get the ball back to start the second half. So when you can make a play like that, it's just, I don't want to say it's an extra play or it's a free play, but there's times where the defense accounts for that player and other times that he doesn't. So you have to be smart about how you do it. You can't just go back and then just take off. You got to run around. You got to have a sense and a feel for what's going on in the pocket, what's the defense doing on the other side of the ball. But quarterbacks that can kind of use their legs to sort of get out of harm's way or make a positive play, it's certainly a plus.
Coach, Nick, after the interception that CJ threw on the sideline, it's 6-0. They get the ball in our plus territory for them, and Kamari comes up with that interception. We can talk about all the big plays we want, Joe's touchdown run, Nico's touchdown, the fumble that turned into a completion, but it felt like that play, because we were talking about during the broadcast, like, man, they get a first down, they get a field goal, they're up 2 scores. Man, that's maybe trouble. But then Kamari comes up with the interception. How big a play in your eyes did you think that one was at that time?
Yeah, you talk about sudden change. People talk about sudden change. That's a good example. I would say even in the first quarter, the turnover on the first play offensively, and then we're able to get the defensive stop and force them into the field goal. So those plays, you never know when they're going to happen, but you just have to be able to respond to the situation. You can't dwell on what has happened positively or negatively. You just have to move on to the next play or the next situation. That's a really good example. They had a concept drawn up. Johnston kind of was lined up on the left side of the field, started as if he was going to run the over route, and it broke it back there to the corner, and it ended up being kind of like a double post concept. Kamari was in really good position, and he basically went up there and just played the ball and took the ball away. So Kamari's made plays for us all year, and that was another illustration of that.
Yeah.
I love a story like D'Angelo Ross, who he's been up and down, practice squad, off the roster, on the roster, and he makes one of the big plays of the game because they get some momentum, and then you kind of thwart it with that block and the 2-point conversion the other way.
Yeah, I'd say D'Lo is a really good example of you're going to need everybody at some point during the year. And when you build the depth of your team and your roster, it's players that are on the roster that are on a 53, and then the other 16 or 17 that are on a practice squad because you have the flexibility to bring them up and down. But D'Angelo's had a great attitude all year. He doesn't say anything. If you try to have a conversation with him, like, you'll get more words in edgewise in 4 seconds than he will over the course of the whole conversation. But very smart, humble, works hard, cares a lot about winning, does the right thing for the team, and whatever he can do to contribute, he's shown the ability to do that. We've had to play him at corner. Had a Green Bay game where he had to go out there and play a little bit, gave up some plays, but that's going to happen playing corner. But he's helped us in the kicking game. It's a good example of a player. Your opportunity on defense may come as a result of what you do in a kicking game. So, but that play, to be able to get points after they score, that certainly was a big play in the game.
He also gets his hands on the block, which doesn't turn into a block because the ball goes down the field. But that's something, I think it's a great lesson for players. That's something that we've seen him work on all year. We've been watching that practice all year. Like, all year here, and you're like, it's never going to work. It's never. And then the one time you think, it's never going to work, it actually works, and he ends up making a play. And by the way, he spoke to me after the game in his interview. He's a little better than you. I'm just going to say, I'm just going to put it out there. Okay.
He was excited.
It was a great win.
Wait. I got one more.
Okay,
I got
ahead.
my Chris Farley question. Derek Stingley Jr., he's awesome.
He's good. He's really good.
Good player, yes. Yeah. All-pro corner. So
2 picks.
Enough said.
Not bad.
Yeah.
Okay.
Derek's a really good player, so he's worked really hard. He's improved, really, honestly, from the beginning of the season until now. So takes a lot of pride in what he does. I'd say the big area where he's probably improved and helped us the most is the tackling and the run for us. He's had a number of plays where we're able to kind of set the edge of the defense where he's forced the ball back. But he's going to make a play on the ball if he's close, and he's shown that over the course of his career. So great player. Glad he's on our team.
Okay, so we played the Chiefs all the way back in 2024. So I want to ask you about the scouting report. So I'll just ask you about this. What's different about them? What can change? How many guys played or didn't play in that game that we might not see in this one? They've got a lot of rest. Your thoughts in general about the Chiefs.
Yeah, they've started to get into a little bit of rhythm offensively. I'd say when you kind of look at how they played our game, I know Patrick is he going to play? Is he not going to play? I think everybody assumed he was going to play, but they played pretty efficient offense in that game. Did a good job of getting the ball out of their hand. Mark Hollywood came back in that game as well. So they kind of have a full complement of skill players. And the offensive line, it looks like they've kind of found a formula that's worked with Joe at left tackle and Caliendo inside, whether or not they put Humphreys back out there and put Joe inside. And then so they played well offensively against Pittsburgh on Christmas Day. So Travis, had 9 or 10 catches, and Travis does what Travis does, which is find a space, and Patrick finds them in critical situations and throws it to him. So they've been pretty efficient offensively, and then defensively, they've actually done a pretty good job of taking the ball away. Since our game in our game and the Pittsburgh game, up till that point they were kind of middle to lower. They've kind of improved their turnover margin a little bit, so taking the ball away a little bit more, not turning it over offensively. Patrick's done a really good job of not turning the ball over, which maybe up midway through the year, his interception total was high, but he's able to kind of minimize that. So taking care of the football is going to be critically important. A team that takes it away is probably going to have the advantage, but looks like they're healthy. They have a full complement of players, and then defensively, everything starts with the front. Everything starts with Chris. He's kind of been in and out. He's been kind of nursing a knee or whatever it was, but it looks like they have everybody healthy. They've had 20-some-odd days to get ready for this game, so we're going to get their best shot. They're going to get our best shot, so it's going to come down to execution and who makes the most plays and who plays the best on that particular day.
Yep.
How much does it help that it's been less than a month that you played that game and you were right in it in the second half?
Yeah, I would say you don't have to necessarily go back and refamiliarize yourself with the personnel. You have a pretty good understanding of their team because it's pretty fresh. You're going to go back and obviously look at that game, look at our game, what happened in the game, what worked, what didn't work, what are some adjustments that we can make. Obviously study the Pittsburgh game. They played a number of backups against Denver, but you're still going to go back and look at that game. Maybe there's some themes or ideas that showed up, but you're not going back kind of turning the page where you played them week 4, week 5 to see like what significant changes have taken place. This is really, it's fresh. We're familiar with them. They're familiar with us. Going to go back through and just maybe figure out some things and make some modifications and adjustments based on what happened in the previous game.
How impressive, and you know him, how impressive is what Joe Thuney is doing, moving from left guard to left tackle and being as successful as he is? How difficult is that to do, Nick?
Yeah, it's very impressive. And honestly, it doesn't surprise anybody that's been around Joe Thuney. He's very instinctive. He's very aware. He's very smart. He's very tough. He played left tackle at North Carolina State. I know it was moons ago, and he's played guard essentially his entire career. But they felt like that was their best option is to move him out. They've had just some moving parts there at left tackle. But to be able to do that late in the season, different. It's a little bit like what Titus has done, kind of going from right tackle, going inside to play guard. But to go from left guard to left tackle, that's certainly not easy because you're blocking a different type of player out there on the perimeter. But Joe's a very smart, very instinctive. Joe's a good football player. He's been in this league a long time, and he's been very productive. Essentially, he's very consistent. And he's done a really good job for them.
Nick, we saw Azeez against Tennessee, but what did it mean to have him out there against the Chargers, his contribution, and not just making plays, but psychologically for the team?
Yeah, his leadership, his toughness, his communication is huge for our defense. So he kind of settles everything down. Sometimes he has to do too much to kind of get everybody else kind of in the right spot, but he's a very instinctive football player. I think these 2 games, you can kind of see he's got his feet back underneath him. And we didn't have Azeez in the first one against Kansas City. So good opportunity. Him, a couple of other players that didn't play in that game that, we'll have back here. But Azeez has been a good player for us all year, so it was good to have him on the field. There's no question about it.
And one more on a guy who's been out for a bit, but he's back, Foley Fatukasi, and what he means for the D-line. I know you have so many guys up there rotating. It's constant, but he seems to be a really valuable piece in the middle.
Yeah, Foley, when he's been on the field, it just gives you kind of a bigger presence, a bigger body on the inside part of the run defense. So he's big, he's strong, he's physical, he's instinctive. He made a number of plays the other night against the Chargers. So worked really hard to get himself in a position to be able to contribute. So hopefully he's available to us here again this week.
With some of the injuries the Chiefs had early, forced them to go out and get Hopkins, but then they get Hollywood back. And our game was the first game that we had a chance to see him. And so you're, okay, well, how's he fit in? They got Worthy, the burner, could do some things. Obviously, there's always Travis, and then there's Hop. What is Hollywood going to bring? Okay, he's just going to be a 9 route down the field. And then, boy, you see how they sprinkled him in, and you're like, whoa, this could be pretty dangerous. How do you look at Hollywood, Nick, and how tough is it to kind of figure out what more they can do with him?
Yeah, it's a little bit more nuanced than, okay, they just put him on the field and let him run down the field. So Hollywood, I'd say he and Worthy are similar. They're both fast. They're both quick. They can run a variety of different routes. He's getting more comfortable. They're using him more. I would say Kansas City does a good job of really utilizing all their offensive skill. So whether it's Noah and Travis Kelce, we talked about Hollywood, we talked about Worthy. Justin Watson is a player nobody really talks about, but it's a player Patrick likes throwing the ball to. Hop has his role. Remigio's kind of helped him in a return game. So they use all of their offensive skill and offensive personnel. So it just gives them another player that they feel good about, which is why they added him to the team in the first place.
Nick, you're around a great young head coach in D'Amico Ryans. You were around Bill Belichick, one of the greatest coaches ever. Andy Reid, facing him this week. And you look at the Philadelphia part of the resume, that alone looks like a Hall of Fame career. What about all he's been able to do in his career, and it's still going?
Yeah, Andy's just so consistent, has a great grasp of his team, what they have to do each week. And Andy has shown the ability to adjust and adapt his system as he goes. And that's a mark of a great coach, is to be able to look at your team, figure out what you have to do well. The West Coast kind of offensive system that he ran in Philly, what they're doing here in KC is totally different. There's some nuances that probably carry over, but he's just been so consistent, so steady. When you win however many divisions they've won, they've been in the AFC Championship game, 6-7 years in a row. Everything starts at the top with the head coach. So a lot of respect for Andy, the way he runs the program. He'll be in the Hall of Fame one day, and deservedly so.
We know, obviously, Mahomes, and we talked about all the weapons. But how important is stopping Pacheco, not letting him get going, whether it's runs or screens, and just keeping that element of the game intact as much as you possibly can, Nick?
The run game is going to be a factor in this game, both sides of the ball. And he's a big part of the run game. I think our game might have been one of the few first game back, or he's been in and out because he's had some injuries. But he runs hard. He's tough. He's strong. He's hard to tackle. He gets extra yards after contact. So swarm tackling, get as many hats to the ball around him will be critically important.
This time of year, we see all these coaching jobs opened up and people interviewing. How much do people call around and get references on guys from other GMs and personnel people? How often does that kind of thing happen?
It's case by case. You'll have some people might have their group of people that they get information from, but if they have a question on somebody, I think everybody kind of knows everybody or everything. You start with the tape and then you kind of work backwards. You're probably doing some work behind the scenes. So we're always going to be pretty open and pretty honest, and however we can help whomever it is, it's just the right thing to do. And whether it's the coach or you just want to, if someone asks you a question, you just want to give them a straight answer and be honest and direct with them, because I think they appreciate that and hope there is reciprocity on the other side if we're reaching out and doing the same thing.
They're going to find out anyway, right? So,
exactly.
Hey, you were not correct on that assessment, or you were.
They're going to fact check you. Don't worry.
So we got a lot of work to do, but you've also got a lot of work to do in another area. Is it the same as last year in a sense that I don't want to say, you've been having the draft meetings, you've been discussing that. How do you kind of go through all that, Nick, with the draft meetings? Do you kind of let those guys run things? Do you kind of get involved with that as much as you can as you stay prepared for the Chiefs? How do you kind of go about that as we move forward?
Yeah, sure. Everybody's kind of on their own right now. The All-Star games, there's been a few. They had the Hula Bowl. There's going to be a few more, and then we're going to have the East-West and then the Senior Bowl. But everybody's kind of working independently right now. Really, the next thing is waiting on the underclassmen list. So there's been about 40-ish or so players that have declared. You'll probably get another, let's call it 20 to 25 here at some point. So want to make sure you're familiar with who those players are. So you do your work kind of on an individual basis. Our next round of draft meetings are middle of February-ish. So everybody's kind of on their own working. Probably have an opportunity to get everybody together at the Senior Bowl. And then after the Senior Bowl, we'll get back together and just try to get all the information organized and start to prepare for the next phase in the offseason.
All right, I'm stealing this one from Johnny.
Oh, no.
A.J. Brown was reading a book on the sideline. His team was winning, so I guess it was okay. But what is the weirdest thing or some of the weird things you've seen players do on the sideline, like read a book or maybe somebody had their phone or something like that? Not here, of course. No. I don't know. Whatever experiences you might have heard about.
Wherever you used to be.
Nothing like jumps out at me. I think everybody has their own different quirks or different things. Whether it's pregame, they might do something.
Right.
During the game, there's really not too much that goes on. So whatever your routine is, if that's a part of your process, then so be it. I think things have evolved through the years. I mean, a lot of times everybody's just kind of on the bench and you're going through the tablet just trying to get ready for the next drive. So
you can't search for things on that tablet, right?
You cannot. And you're not playing video, so you can't get online and start looking for like the next great novel that's coming out next week.
How much are you reading during the season? Do you get to read during the season, or are you just focused on that?
That's a funny question. I try to maybe read a book or two, like over the course of a couple weeks. So I'll try to get through. Maybe if the book takes me, make me a week or two, 7 to 10 days. Try to transition to the next. I try to budget maybe 45, 60 minutes during the course of the week, just kind of as an outlet. Yeah. Just something that I could pour into a little bit. Usually when we get on the bus, when we're traveling to the airport, there's an opportunity. So I enjoy doing it. So try to find things that are stimulating, that are interesting. So I'm actually reading Tim Grover, who wrote Relentless. This was Kobe and Michael Jordan's trainer. He has another book that's out about winning and just mindset and thought process. So anything that I can get my hands on, leadership, business kind of related, not to nerd out on anybody, but I enjoy doing it and try to budget some time, during the course of the year. Sometimes all of us need a release. Everybody's got different releases away from football, what they're doing, but I enjoy doing it. So no, it's interesting that you asked that question.
Have you read A.J. Brown's book? I can't remember what it's called.
I don't know the name of it.
No, it was a self-improvement book.
Yeah,
I can't remember the title.
Yeah.
I read a couple of pages that they tweeted
it's number one on Amazon on Monday morning.
Looks good. It looks good. Are we talking electronic, like a Kindle, or is it paper?
Read it. I can't read off a handheld.
Okay.
I need to read have a book, hardcover, because I have a pen with me and I'm making some notes or underline. I can't read off a Kindle. I know some people
Kids make fun of you for that?
Yeah, my kids are online. My youngest, that's all she just tries to sneak away with her iPad. It's like, honey, bring that back here. Where are you going?
Breaking news. Nick is not scrolling Instagram in his spare time. He's reading. Okay. Nick, thanks a lot for joining us. Good luck.
Thanks, fellas.